So tell me how you travel back and forth from Australia and still manage to be coherent when you show up here.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of balance it. Get into nature, still try and get some sunlight, feet on the ground when you can, as much rest as you can, meditate if you can, and just try and balance it as much as possible so that you can stay centered and still functional to get as much work done as possible and maximize the trip.
Do you spring for business class so you get a lie flat seat?
No, I still fly economy.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's one of those things where business class is like 5 times the price.
Right.
And the way that everything's traveling at Mana, there's just so many beautiful ways we can spend extra revenue, including reinvesting into product inventory and R&D for new products. So I'm super fortunate on planes that I can sleep a lot. So that helps.
Even sitting up?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember a couple years ago, well, a few years ago now, I had a speaking gig in London, and I just don't go anywhere unless I can fly business, especially on a long flight. I have to have a flat seat. I'm not trying to be, it's not a vanity thing. It's literally just, I will lose my shit if I'm sitting in a seat. And they're like, yeah, we got it. No, we got you a business class seat. And I got on the plane, and it was like, I forget what airline, but the seats kind of go 3/4 way back, which is like even worse. So I just ended up putting the seat up because you're not really lying down. You're not sitting up. It's kind of in between. And I was like, never again. I have to make sure I stipulate, in the contract, again, not trying to be, fancy or anything. It's just brutal. I don't know how people do it. But yeah, I mean, you're in the process of building a company. And so if you can save that money and spend it where it's more of better use, it makes sense. So you were here last year. I think our episode number 468 came out in April 2023, and we had a fantastic conversation. People love that episode. So I'm excited to have you back. What's new in your personal life, business life? What's happening in the year that's passed?
Yeah, so the business has exploded from a sales and revenue perspective, which has been amazing. And like I was saying to you just before the podcast, it's kind of one thing to create an amazing finished product, but then when the sales start and the management, the operations of the project is quite intense, something I actually underestimated. So our team's built, and just all of the little things like the customer service, the consistency of what comes at you for that first, well, it just doesn't stop actually. So 24/7. So myself and Brad McDonnell, who run the business, work 7 days a week from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's
You're
super
still in
intense.
the 7-day phase.
Yeah. Which is beautiful. And yeah, it's super challenging. I mean, a lot of the reason for that as well is we've invested into 3 new products. 2 have been released in the last 2 months. And then we've got the Mana Gold coming out in June. So just a lot of intense focus. One of the things we've learned over the years is where you put your attention, that's, you get the result where you put your attention and energy grows from that space. So, it's a choice for us to kind of develop that obsession in the substances and the raw materials that we deal with. And we love the process. We wouldn't have it any other way. However, it is a lot.
Do you plan on staying in Australia as your home base?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it there.
Yeah, you text me photos sometimes. Sometimes they come in spurts, and then I'll start texting you, and all of our photos are like sunrises and sunsets. You're like my sun-gazing brother, that is super committed to that. I mean, imagining I haven't been to Australia, but I'm guessing you live somewhere near the ocean, and you are in a position where you can see the sun a lot, based on what you text me.
Yeah, so actually for the last decade, I've been living in the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, which is about a 30-minute drive, and it's at elevation. So that's really good for seeing the sunrise. I can't see the sunrise from my little cabin, but I've just got to drive up the hill a little bit further and there's a beautiful lookout. That cabin, the actual roof collapsed on it about 4 months ago. It was super old. And so I've actually moved down the coast now, right near the beach.
Sweet.
So that's
Sweet.
it's a beautiful location because we can see the sunrise and go for an early morning swim and early morning walk. And it's a beautiful way to start the day.
Epic. And
Yeah.
tell people why you're into sun gazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most powerful thing that I've ever still found, the most powerful practice. And I guess because the sun is really the source of all life, and that light that comes from the sun, especially early morning or late afternoon, it has so many of the light codes that are so important for our cellular biology and so important for our internal biocircuitry and our biochemistry and our bioenergetic field as well. So it's like we discussed last time, the body is the most advanced technology in the universe. So once we accept that, if we zoom out, it's like with any technology, we want to be able to upgrade the hardware and the software. So the codes from the sun is really one of the best ways to do that.
Have you heard of this Australian guy, Santos Bonacci?
Yes.
I was listening to a podcast. Is that how you say his last name? Bonacci?
Yes.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast on which he was a guest, and he was talking about how the sun is actually a concentrated rainbow. Like, you know, he makes a habit of debunking a lot of things about our cosmology and the nature of our earthly realm and astrology and things like that, as you probably know. But I thought that was really interesting. You know, I was like, yeah, the sun isn't a fiery ball as we've been taught. It's just a round rainbow. And we probably don't see it that way because of the visible light spectrum. We look at the sun, it looks kind of yellow or kind of white, and then a little orange in the morning and night. But with our naked eye, we can't see that it does have that full spectrum of light. And that's the light that creates rainbows. So it's really, really interesting. I never heard that before.
Yeah, and that white light, which is really how we see it when it's not in a sunrise or a sunset situation, white light contains all light.
Oh, right.
So all the colors of the rainbow exist within white light, and even within the yellow and golden color, that also contains all wave forms of light. So gold, as an example, is crystallized light in a metallic form, and that color actually holds all the wavelengths of visible light.
Gold does.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and actually, since we've been dealing with the nano gold that's in our new product, we've had that experience directly, that the different size nanoparticles and the different shape and the different charge reflect different wavelengths of light. So the smaller nanoparticles, around 10 nanoparticles, are actually red. And then when you get up to 100, they're purple. And that whole spectrum from red, which is the lowest frequency light, to purple or violet, which is the highest, and everything in between is the colors of the rainbow. So even at a nanoparticle size, gold holds all those different frequencies of light.
That's epic. I interviewed a guy named Dr. Edward Group the other day from a company called Global Healing, like a really high-end, beautiful product line that he's created over the years. And one of his new products is a methylene blue. And he puts the monoatomic gold in there and explains something about the refraction of light. And because methylene blue is photodynamic, as are metals like silver and gold. And I've heard of people putting colloidal silver in methylene blue. So I did that myself as just an experiment. You know, not really knowing what I'm doing, but just like, it makes sense, you know. But yeah, I forget how he explained it exactly, but it was really interesting. It had something to do with increasing the potential of the photobiomodulation element of methylene blue. And I bet it has something to do with what you're talking about.
Makes sense, yeah. I mean, colloidal silver and colloidal golds, they're kind of, I see them as like pseudo products to some extent. They're not necessarily real particles of silver or gold. However, like the atomic size of gold is super interesting as well when we're talking about monoatomic, like Mono obviously meaning one atom. And the radius of a gold atom is about 0.144 nanometers, and 144 is actually the number of light as well. So there's kind of like a little clue there with the gold. But once we get into the nanometer size of gold, and I'm talking pure gold, pure 24 karat gold, it has the capability and capacity to hold all different waveforms of light. So it actually changes color, again, depending on the size, shape, and charge. And it can actually pass through the blood-brain barrier, which is the most selective part of the body, because of that size, charge, and shape as well. The shape being the geometry. So you can have it like little stars or little spheres.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, because I just had some of your Mono Gold, your new product, which is not out at the time of this recording, but will be for those watching. You can see what it looks like right here. Beautiful packaging, by the way. So right now I have atoms of gold in my brain. I took it like, I don't know, 30 minutes ago or something.
Yeah, so there's the atomic world, and then you get into the nano world. And the nano world is kind of, let's say you have 10 nanometers. That's a cluster of approximately 30 gold atoms. So under that doesn't really pass through the blood-brain barrier. And then above 100 nanometers doesn't really pass through the blood-brain barrier. So there's a sweet spot there. And yeah, nano gold acts very different to metallic gold. The main difference is that it's bioavailable. So it doesn't accumulate in the body as heavy metal. If it's around that 10 nanometer size, it can pass through the kidneys and leave within our urine. And if it's a little bit bigger, it will pass through our liver and leave through our stool, but it doesn't accumulate in the body. So there's no risk of heavy metal.
So you're what I would consider to be an alchemist based on our first conversation. I mean, the stuff you're doing with Ormus and sea minerals and Shilajit, like that seems to be your lane. Would you classify yourself as that too? Or is there a better word for your model, like what drives you and the kind of tinkering you do with these different substances?
Yeah, it's really an obsession for the truth, Luke. And none of this is new. It's been used by the Egyptians. It's been used by the Essenes. It's written about in a lot of sacred text. I guess nowadays we have the opportunity with technology to play with things like nanoparticles in a very precise way and actually do clinical studies and test a lot of these things. You know, at the moment there's actually a term called plasmon resonance or surface plasmon resonance, where they're using this in mainstream medicine. They're using gold nanoparticles in these different nanometer sizes to actually induce coherent light emissions at the cellular level. It turns into energy, and they're using it to treat all kinds of things.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's interesting because, you know, what I've learned, and my knowledge of this is limited. So in layman's terms, what I've learned is that the mitochondria actually produce infrared light, which is really interesting. And it has a lot to do with why infrared saunas are great for energy production and so on. Cold thermogenesis, doing ice baths, right? There's something that stimulates your mitochondria to make more infrared light. And then somehow that's related to making the exclusion zone water in your body. It's super interesting. I mean, most of it's a bit over my head. So I just kind of take the broad strokes and go, yeah, do more saunas, do more ice baths, you know, and drink structured water and do the things that I do. But I think we're headed in a place that's really interesting, especially, as you said, when mainstream science, who, you know, includes, of course, many brilliant people and innovations, but also in some ways is very archaic and in some cases even destructive and antithetical to life. So the fact that they're starting to apply some of this science is really interesting.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's a sign of the times that we're in as well. As I said, this has been used throughout antiquity, and it usually presents itself at specific times in specific cycles. And really it's about getting more light into the biology. So it's increasing that quotient of light, upregulating more bioluminescence within our body. And that really allows us to transform that biochemistry, upgrade that biocircuitry. And once we can operate in that higher frequency state, our entire reality can change.
Like most people with a pulse, I love the taste of coffee, but what I don't like is the jitters and crash that often come with it. So to solve this, I went looking for a morning drink that gives me lasting energy without those pesky side effects. Well, that's exactly what I found when I discovered the incredible Nandaka formula from Peak. Nandaka is made with fermented pu'er teas that give you slow-release caffeine for sustained energy while supporting a healthy gut at the same time. And the ceremonial-grade Peruvian cacao in Nandaka helps rev up your metabolism and makes the compounds in Nandaka even more bioavailable. And it goes without saying, to make something part of my morning routine, it's got to taste incredible too, and this one does. It's like a creamy, spiced hot chocolate. To make my morning drink, I throw 1 sachet in a 1.5 cups of hot water, froth it for a few seconds, and I'm good to go. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off Nandaka, plus a free rechargeable frother and cup over at peaklife.com/Luke. That's PIQUELIFE, peaklife.com/Luke. And by the way, Nandaka also comes loaded with a blend of highly concentrated functional mushrooms like chaga, reishi, cordyceps, and lion's mane. All these ingredients work together to relieve stress and improve your mood. Nandaka is an awesome morning ritual. In fact, I've got a cup sitting on my desk right now to power me through these promos. So to get your hands on some of this stuff, head over to peaklife.com/Luke and get 15% off Nandaka, plus your free frother and cup, all for a limited time.
Yeah, so, every aspect of the body is an electrical circuit and has an electrical potential. So we even measure within our cells, there is a cell membrane potential, they call it, or a phase angle. And my background's in electrical engineering, so it kind of comes naturally for me to view the body as an electrical circuit. But yeah, cell membrane potential is effectively, it's measuring the charge between the inside and the outside of the cell. Every single cell has it. So there's usually a negative charge on the inside of the cell. It's usually between 20 and 200 millivolts. So if we use an average of like 40, which is most healthy cells, and it has a negative charge on the inside, positive charge on the outside, and then we're made up of 37 trillion cells. So there's a lot of cell membrane potential or voltage potential within inside of our body. So it's really important for us to have like a powerful charge. And a lot of our cellular biology at the moment is operating independently from each other. So those millivolts or that charge doesn't get the opportunity to kind of accumulate. However, when we take some of these substances like Ormus or even certain kind of salts, or in particular gold, which is superconductive material in electrical circuits. So if it's bioavailable gold in our circuitry.
Right. I'm thinking about like high-end audio equipment. Like if you buy speaker cables and things, it'll always say like gold tips for better conductivity and sound. There's something to that in the world of electronics. Like there's always an emphasis on things being gold plated and things like that.
All electronics.
Interesting.
Phones, computers, anywhere where there's a very critical area, they'll still use gold, because what that's doing is removing resistance in the circuit. And so that's what it's doing in our body as well. It's removing resistance. It's making things superconductive, which gives those cells, that voltage, the chance to accumulate and raises the charge and the voltage of our body. And it also has the capacity to absorb those light waves when it's in that nano size. So it's literally like the highest frequency nutrient we can absorb in our body, and it's literally food for our light body.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so epic. So when you create something like Mono Gold and it has actual gold in it, how is it not $500 a packet? You know what I mean? I mean, like I had these earrings that I bought in Hawaii a lot of 20 years ago or something, and finally after maybe 20 years, one of them fell out and I lost it.
Mm.
And so I just forgot about it. And I thought, you know what? I still have the one. So I took it to a jewelry store here and was like, hey, can you guys match this other earring and make me one? And I don't know how big is like a tiny little hoop earring. And it was like, I don't know, $600 or $800 for one of them, and they're like, yeah, that's the price of gold. I mean, I think it was even cost. They're like, we're not going to charge you for making it just for the gold, I was like, holy shit. So is there such a small amount of gold that's needed to produce the effect that you described that it's not like buying a piece of jewelry or something?
Yeah, it is quite expensive.
I guess I don't know the price of it yet. Maybe it's not $500. So the regular mana, which we'll do a review of for people that missed the first episode. I think is it like $100 for the big pack or something? I
Correct.
forget. Okay.
Yes.
So for contrast, what's the gold going to be?
300.
Oh, okay. So it is. I'm like, I thought I was way overshooting at 500.
So each sachet has 5 milligrams of pure 24 karat gold in it.
Wow.
In a nanometer form. We actually did our first bulk production last Thursday, and I literally put $500,000 worth of gold into a 200,000 sachet run.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No wonder you're not flying first class. Now I get it. Before I was like, dude, I mean, you could carve out a couple extra grand. Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we're literally reinvesting all of our revenue back into this product, and we're running Mana as a not-for-profit.
Oh, okay.
Simply because of that. And we hope that a lot of other people do this as well. We also hope that some of the new technologies coming through can drive the price of gold down. And we're involved in a couple of those technologies quite intimately, where they're right on the cusp of being able to get monoatomic forms of gold and cluster it, which is what nature does over tens of thousands of years. When I say cluster it, it puts it into sizes that our technology picks up as gold, and then we can cluster it even further into the yellow gold that we're familiar with. But nature takes a long time to do that. Now there's some technologies that can do that in days. So that would actually lower the price of gold very significantly, because the monoatomic forms of gold is super abundant. It's everywhere. But with gold being the greatest storage of wealth on the planet for the last 5,000 years, it's a big deal to kind of start to change that and alter that. So it's obviously linked in with consciousness and the part of the cycle that we're in. And there may be resistance to that from particular people as well. So it's quite a sensitive area. And at least at Mana, we actually have the product in the market and available now. And we just feel like we're stewards for that. We feel super proud that we've got to this point, because understanding how consciousness works, now that we've done it, hopefully a lot of other people will do it. And what excites us the most is the impact that it does have on the body, of being able to pass through the blood-brain barrier, get into the amygdala, and totally transform the human physiology into like a state of genetic liberation and creating a whole new human species. So,
oh, just that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's incredible. Wow. Yeah. I mean, as you talk about gold and, going back as our primary measure of value over the past 5,000 years or however long it's been, I've always found it interesting that humans all over the planet have revered gold as much as they do. And one could say on a surface level, oh, well, it's kind of difficult to find and mine and refine and turn into something that you can carry around as a commodity. So there's maybe some of that. That's probably easier than diamonds, for example, but maybe a little harder than silver. So you kind of see why it sits in the middle there. But I've always felt intuitively that there's some other significance to gold. Like, why is that the thing of all things through all of these different cultures throughout history? There's something more to it than just like, oh, we can use this as a bartering tool. So maybe other cultures have been aware of some of the higher consciousness elements that you speak to.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's things about gold that we're still figuring out. As our consciousness changes, we'll learn more about it. I think it has different light waves and different magnetic properties that we're attracted to outside of its shininess and its value. And I think one of the most amazing things about it is this incredible food for the light body and for aspects of us that are just starting to get turned back on and present themselves, which is, there's a lot of research on ancient civilizations eating gold. There's a lot of research on advanced beings coming to the planet for gold. I don't know if you've seen any of the work of Michael Tellinger, but he's researched that quite passionately and found some very interesting research and examples of that throughout South Africa and all across the world. So yeah, gold it's the most revered element of all of them, and I think it goes much beyond what we currently know.
So cool. The idea of eating a metal, I think, is probably foreign to some people, especially people that are kind of on the cutting edge of health and biohacking, because we're starting to learn how detrimental the accumulation of metals is in the body, heavy metals, lead, cadmium, mercury, and so on. One of the companies I work with called Silver Biotics found a way to formulate their colloidal silver so that it doesn't bioaccumulate in the body, and they've done testing to show that it's gone in 48 hours or whatever it is, which I think is interesting. But I have had messages from people like, ooh, I don't want to take silver because I don't want to be full of heavy metals. And I've worked on detoxing heavy metals for a long time. So I think many of us just have kind of an intuitive aversion to putting metal in our body. But I think maybe there's something different with this from what you said earlier with it. A, doesn't bioaccumulate because of the way that it is metabolized. And not all metals are created equally, right? So what you're describing is this bioluminescence and things like that. Like we don't get that from a lead or a mercury, right?
No, not at all. It's very specific to gold. And yeah, you're exactly right. Like even gold, it is a heavy metal. So if you were just to take normal parts of gold, it wouldn't be bioavailable and it wouldn't be good for you. But again, breaking it down into these nano size particles, it's 100% bioavailable and can be processed and utilized by the body very efficiently. And again, it is in mainstream science. So even if you to Google bioavailability of nanoparticle gold, they will admit that the body can absorb it and process it.
Even censored Google?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look things up and I'm like, I know it's going to lie to me, but I'm just like, I'm just going to test out, or doing like AI, I'll go on Chat GPT and like, oh, hey, what do you think about this or that? And it's like, I know if I cross certain boundaries, it will spit back pseudoscience and just complete like fallacies to me, because there's someone behind the scenes controlling the flow of information that doesn't want me to know that or wants to paint a different narrative for me. So that's interesting that you can kind of break through the firewall with gold that even mainstream will admit like, oh yeah, it does this and does that.
And I think it's because it's being used so much in medicine. So they're actually having it going into cells that are incoherent, and they're putting specific waveforms of light into the nanoparticles, which is creating energy in that cell and coherence in that cell, which is removing the incoherence. I won't necessarily talk about what kind of cells they are, but it's all there.
We can read between the lines.
Yeah.
We know when cells go rogue, it usually starts with the letter C.
Yeah.
We can say that. Wow,
so that's all there because they're using it a lot.
That's so interesting.
And it's working.
So as someone who likes to know the way things work, and I do my best to visualize it, but I really like going. Like I would love to go to your manufacturing plant and like watch the process. I just geek out on stuff like that. But I'm picturing you dropping $500,000 on gold that is a chunk of metal. I'm picturing like a big gold bar, from the US Mint or whatever. What's the process of taking that and making it into something that's actually edible and bioavailable?
Yeah, so there's an antiqual process, and then there's a modern day lab process, and we use both. So there's still a component of it that's done by hand, especially grinding the gold down into very thin sheaths and then melting that gold and putting it through like a death and resurrection process. We call it a calcineration process. And the power of that being done with like yantras and mantras is it's in training the gold to be self-sustainable. So when it goes into the biology, it's also in training the cells to be self-sustainable. So that's just something that part of the process that we love, but the rest of it is utilizing technology to get the gold particles into the right size, the right geometry, and also have the correct charge, because that's the critical component to them being bioavailable as well.
So there's going to be a number of people that see the value in something like monogold and will find a way to drop $300 on it. If somebody was being conservative and they're like, wow, $300 is half my rent or whatever, that's a lot of money. What would be kind of the minimum effective dose in terms of, I mean, could you take one a month and derive benefit, or is it something that you'd, if you could afford to, that you take once a week or daily? Like, give me the range of application based on budget.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the way we've designed our other products is there's 30 sachets in a box. So you take one sachet a day, which in this case would cost you $10 a day because the sachet's $10 or $11. So
you could quit Starbucks and afford it. Most people.
So we understand that's super expensive. At this stage, there's nothing we can do about that because of the cost of the gold that's in there. Gold's roughly $75,000 a kilo at the moment. And then to actually get it into this nanoparticle form is very, very, very expensive. So it's been a labor of love. And to answer your question, so we're not going to have a subscription model with this. It will be kind of limited to how much we can just produce inside the project. We're not raising any capital to do this. It's all funded through Mana. And so you could add one sachet to like a liter of water, which I think for you guys is maybe 64 ounces.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And you could drink it over a month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the 5 milligrams of nano gold that's in every sachet is literally trillions and trillions and trillions of gold nanoparticles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So 5 milligrams, to give you the correct number, it's actually 10 to the power of 13. So that's 1 with 13 zeros after it. That's how many nanoparticles are actually in there. So even though we recommend a dosage of 5 milligrams a day, if you were just to put one sachet in 64 ounces of water and drink it over a month, you would still be getting those nanoparticles going through the blood-brain barrier. And the beautiful thing with it passing through the blood-brain barrier and getting into your system is it gets through to the amygdala, and that's where all of our emotions and our fear and flight and fight response is.
Fucking amygdala.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been trying to calm that thing down for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm so passionate about the product, and people even just getting small amounts in there is it starts to alleviate a lot of that emotion, a lot of that fear, and balances it out. So that's the first thing that the gold's doing. It's giving us that solid foundation really of like peace and groundedness. And then it can start to regulate those higher processes. So it'll start to get into the cerebral spinal fluid. It'll start to get into the medulla oblongata can actually, so that's the part of the brain that's regulating like our bodily functions, like our heartbeat, our blood pressure. And so once we have a certain quotient of light within the body, it will actually start to regulate those secretions up and down the spinal column as well. And that's when our interaction with life starts to really transform.
So epic. We all know electromagnetic pollution is bad, but it's important to understand why. The evidence suggests that the majority of the harm from EMF comes from the chronic oxidative stress produced when the body's in a constant immune response. Basically, when we're faced with 3G, 4G, and 5G radiation and beyond, the body is continuously trying to attack whatever it perceives as a foreign invader. Now, unless you're prepared to live in a cave in the Himalayas, it's unlikely you're going to be able to avoid the onslaught of EMF in your life. But what if you could mitigate that immune response and thereby reduce the harm? Well, thankfully, there's a way to live in more harmony with our technological world, and it's called Blue Shield. It turns out if there are harmonious frequencies in our environment that match or exceed the power of the incoherent frequencies, our body will prefer and attune to the healthy ones through a process called sympathetic resonance. The Blue Shield devices emit these frequencies using a mathematical algorithm that mimics nature, so the body can attune to them rather than the dangerous EMF and feel safe. And when we tune into the Blue Shield's scalar wave frequencies, our bodies no longer perceive the non-native EMF as a threat, and our immune system begins to restore itself, and our bodies can finally rest and heal. To create your own EMF strategy, visit blueshield-us.com and use the code Luke to save 10%. Since I've been using the Blue Shield devices, which is, coming on probably 6 or 7 years by now, my energy levels have bounced back. I experience better sleep, less stress, and an overall sense of well-being. I really, really believe in what these guys are doing. So if you want to check it out, go to blueshield-us.com. There's no E in there. It's just BLU. And again, the code is Luke to save yourself a fat 10%. What about the implications of stacking sunbathing, red light therapy, and so on? Of course, I'm always like, that's nice. How do we maximize it? But I mean, if you're getting that photoreactive effect and that the capacity to conduct electricity in the cell and to interact with photons, seems it would make sense to take your monogold dose and go out and get some safe sun exposure, depending on, how much melanin you have, I guess. Safe is subjective to each person. I can handle a lot of sun. I go out in the Texas sun. I could sit there all day. I don't get sunburned. Some people do. But say like a red light bed or getting out in the sun, I mean, is there any evidence, anecdotal or scientifically, that would speak to potentiating the effects of having gold in your system?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I guess the first thing is so with any substance, there's three main ways for us to ingest it. We can ingest it through the gut, we can inject it, or we can inhale it. So this is giving us...
Or you can keister it.
True.
People that have done time in prison will know what that means. You guys look it up.
However, this gives us a way of ingesting things through that blood-brain barrier, like I mentioned. So with the Shilajit in Monogold as an example, it amplifies the effect of the Shilajit 10 to 100 times from the research that we're doing. Because once it can go through that chamber, it gets into the central nervous system, and that goes out to the cellular receptors, cellular receptor network. So it's like a greater upregulation of any of those other micronutrients that we're taking. Once the gold gets into the central nervous system or into the spinal column, then we can use things like the Christ breath. We can work with sunlight, back to your question about different kinds of light, and we can start to move those fluids up and down that column and into different parts of our brain. So like an organic process of purification is when the pineal gland will actually start to open up and secrete a substance called amrita. And when that comes up and down that spinal column, down to the sacrum, you can bring it back up. If you don't actually use that, or like if you hold that seed and you don't dispel it, then you can bring it back up and utilize it in the brain and utilize it in that central nervous system, go back all through the body. So to take the gold with other micronutrients, to work with it with light or other purification methods, beautiful spring water, sun gazing, Shilajit, ocean plasma, all of that is like a purification process. Again, it's going to be raising the biochemistry in the body, raising like the software of our system, if you will, which is really important for this time that we're in, so that you can receive those codes that are coming in from the sun at the moment and utilize them in a way that are beneficial and peaceful and harmonious. Because otherwise, it can be really challenging and will continue to become more challenging as those codes are coming through, because they're bringing stuff up that has to come out for us to be able to stay here. And so this is a way of being able to integrate that in a more harmonious way.
What's the deal with the humic and fulvic acid in Shilajit and its ability to penetrate the cells and get nutrients in and toxins out? And I ask that because I've heard that. It's just one of the, someone said it on the show probably, and I'm like, oh, I logged that in, and it sounded true. I don't know if I looked it up, but subjectively, I have experienced on a couple occasions where I've taken your first Mana product, which is like a gram of Shilajit, which for anyone listening, that's a shit ton of Shilajit. I mean, if you take the little pills, like my friend Matt at MitoLife, he has like little tablets, and I think you'd have to take quite a few of them to get a gram. They're convenient though. But yours obviously has some other special sauce in it. But knowing that, I've experimented a couple times taking what I thought was a microdose of mushrooms with your Mana product. And it was like that classic meme, these edibles ain't shit, and you're like having visuals. So word to the wise, warning, it is really true. If you take like especially a psychoactive substance with Shilajit, especially yours, and that much, it definitely unequivocally potentiates the effects of that. And so I heard that, tried it out, proved it to be true, for myself. And I'm imagining it's true as you described for the gold, or if you were to mix like your Mana product with any other sort of, supplement or something like that. Can you talk to us about your understanding of how those acids react and interface with our cells?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. 1,000 milligrams of Shilajit is a very high dose, a very generous dose. And the Shilajit that we get, which is a pure resin from above 16,000 feet, has a really high fulvic acid content as well. Some of our lab results show it to be 88%, but it's always higher than 44. And a lot of Shilajits are between like 7 and 20.
Really?
Yeah.
And not to mention a lot of them are contaminated with heavy metal, mold, all kinds of weird shit, and they're not tested. When I used to buy it from a vendor on Etsy from Siberia, and I would check for the lab, the lab test, and they show their lab test. Oh, the heavy metals are safe. There's no mold or fungus or any of that. But they could be faking that too. It's like, I thought about it after using it for a couple of years, and I was like, well, I could make that on Photoshop, I mean, I wouldn't think it from like a company like you that's, regulated and stuff. But if you're buying something off Etsy from like some witch in the Siberian mountains, who knows if it's legit. So anyway.
Yeah, it's important to lab test it. Everything shows up in there. And fulvic acid's a really good marker. So back to your point, we've got a generous dose. We've got a high percentage of fulvic acid. And then one of the beautiful things with fulvic acid, it's actually known as nature's miracle molecule. There's a really good website actually called fulvicacid.org, and it's got like 100 different things that it helps with. And some of them are, again, pretty profound. There's clinical studies in there. There's research from doctors. It's really amazing. And a lot of it is around its adaptogen qualities, so it makes other vitamin and mineral preparations easier to absorb. It also amplifies them. It also increases
I can verify that
cell membrane potential. And then again, now with the gold, being able to get that fulvic acid that's in the Shilajit through the blood-brain barrier, it's amplifying it even more. So, fulvic acid, I think, is one of the most powerful supercell conductors that there is, full stop. It's kind of just like it's almost like a lost cell or a lost nutrient, because it's no longer in the soil anymore from like agricultural and commercial farming over the last several decades. It's because it's meant to be in there with the compost and the mycelium and all of that, but it's just,
Right.
if you test it, it's gone.
How did you discover your source for Shilajit
Yeah.
that high? What would you, 16,000 feet? Is that what you said? Did I get
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there were land masses that went that high. So I'm like, okay, where the fuck is that? But I remember in our last conversation, you kind of gave me a tale of, a very Indiana Jones kind of like superfood, super nutrient hunter kind of life, which I found really interesting. And now I forget the details, but how many, I don't know, sources did you try to vet or find to get the purity and, lack of contaminants and also that really crazy level of humic acid?
Yeah, so initially I was introduced to Shilajit at Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash is the most revered mountain on the planet for the Hindu and Buddhist religion. They believe it's the home of Shiva. And there's a pilgrimage you can do where you walk around the mountain for 3 days. It took me 4 days. And it's at high altitude, and that's where I was introduced to Shilajit. It's really good when you're at high altitude to help with altitude sickness as well. And I was using that as a supply about 10 years ago and selling that into the market just in little glass jars. And that was from a descendant of the royal family of Tibet. His lease and capacity to supply was quite small. So I ended up testing about 20 different kinds of Shilajit through 2018 and 2019. And that's when I feel like I kind of became an expert in understanding the different kinds of Shilajit and how the altitudes and regions affected the nutrient content. And so now we get our Shilajit from the Himalayan mountains and also some locations in Siberia where it's above that 16,000 feet, mainly because the fulvic acid content is really high and there's no heavy metals. So it's almost like nature goes through this natural filtration process of removing the nasties and the concentration process of like improving the nutrient content. So yeah, we're super specific and don't compromise on quality at Mana. That's our biggest thing. Whether it's the ocean plasma or the Shilajit or the gold, it's like, and that's why we run it as a not-for-profit, is it just allows us to keep those product costs so high, whereas anybody else that came into the business would be like, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. But they're the most powerful 3 substances I've found for our human biology. And so just having the absolute best sources we can find of those, I know that that will be inductive enough for us to be able to sell what we can supply, because we can't get access to massive supplies. It's a fairly boutique product because of the way we do it. But it just means we can stand behind it with full integrity and share the absolute best that we've found with whomever it resonates with.
Do we know where Shilajit comes from? I've heard different things, that it is on the kind of more logical side, that it's ancient decomposed plant matter that's kind of concentrated those minerals and nutrients. But I've also heard people say that it could be inclusive of bat dung, ancient decomposed animal parts. Where does it come from? Because for those listening that are unfamiliar with Shilajit, basically it's like a black tar that kind of seeps out from between these rocks in the mountains. Is that like a basic description of how it sort of appears in our world?
Correct. Yeah, it's 100% plant-based. So it doesn't have...
There's no decomposed dinosaurs. Actually, I don't even think dinosaurs are real at this point, but that's another conversation. I just learned recently, I think that's another one of the many psyops, fossil fuels and all this stuff. But so is there any possibility of ancient bat dung in there?
No, it's 100% plant-based.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And
I wouldn't be mad at that, by the way, as long as it didn't have any, creepy crawlies in it
totally,
anymore.
yeah, totally. And I don't have any problem with like animal-based products, but it is plant-based product. It's maybe people think that because it's so high in protein and amino acids, It's literally the most concentrated form of nutrients that I've found. Like it has full spectrum amino acids. It has full spectrum vitamin Bs. It's like 32% protein.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird.
It has all of the minerals. It's full of magnesium, potassium, sulfur, calcium. It's full of triterpenes, which is the protective compounds in mushrooms. It's full of enzymes. So it's literally a superfood that you could live off.
Well, people, of course, ask me because I have these cabinets. I mean, I'm so grateful to be in the business I'm in. People send me stuff all the time. It's awesome. I used to spend all of my disposable income on supplements and superfoods and stuff that I couldn't even afford. I would like put shit on my credit card and end up in debt just because I had to try this Shilajit or something, you know. So I'm very grateful. I'm not complaining, but sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, and I'm like, I don't know. There's like a cabinet full of stuff. I don't want to overwhelm my body with too many different things at once. So people often ask me, as being kind of a supplement fanatic, if I could only pick one thing, what would it be? Really difficult to say that. So I did make a video a couple years ago of like my top 10 non-negotiable things. And Shilajit was definitely in there. But I think, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I think if somebody imposed a rule on me and emptied all my cabinets out and was like, you can only have one substance that isn't just food. Like, you know, I'd probably pick liver or something like that if it was just one food. But like in the supplement realm, I got to say, I think it would be Shilajit for the reasons you just described. I mean, there's just nothing else that nature makes that is that potent and has that level of nutrient density. And especially something that's completely organic and just made by the planet and isn't, you know, synthesized in a lab or something like that to be so concentrated. It's literally just the way it is at 16,000 feet. Somebody goes up and digs in the rocks and finds this tar and you eat it and it has all the things you just described. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's the same for me as well. It's if there was one thing that I had to be left with and that I could eat to survive, I would choose Shilajit as well. And I'd even put it out there that if there is something with like more nutrients in it per gram, I'd love to know about it, genuinely.
I wonder how it stacks up against oysters, you know, in the food realm. From what I understand in the hierarchy of foods and nutrient density, you have oysters, number one, number two, you know, ruminant or bovine liver, deer liver, elk, cow liver, whatever. That's what I've heard. I mean, from a number of different people that seem to be smart and knowledgeable. I wonder how Shilajit stacks up against oysters.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to mind straight away is oysters wouldn't have fulvic acid.
Definitely not.
So again, with all of those other nutrients that are in the Shilajit, the fulvic acid's amplifying them and allowing them to get into the cell through that adaptogen qualities that we spoke about in a unique way. And I'd be surprised if the oysters have like the triterpenes or even the amino acids. They may have like 10 or 12, and they'd obviously have the minerals. But I don't know if that'd be as concentrated. It's almost like, I feel like Shilajit would be, if you could get 100 oysters and squeeze them into 1 gram of substance,
right.
That's what nature's done with Shilajit. Right. And then you could add, you know, like 50% fulvic acid, then you'd probably be pretty close.
Yeah, oysters don't travel very well either. That's one thing. When I first found your Mana product, I was like, thank God somebody made like a portable Shilajit. Because the thing is like with those like tubs of it, these people are like criminal. Because when I used to buy it on Etsy, I mean, it was like $50 for a kilo or something, right? And it just came in this little plastic tub. And then I go to Erewhon and it's like $180 for a tiny couple grams, you know? And I was just like, people are shysters. So heads up, really, the Shilajit like market is very shady in terms of like how much people are marking it up. But the thing is, I'd buy these tubs, and even in the little canisters, it's like, if it's hot where you store it, then it turns into like this tar, and it's like impossible to dose it, right? It gets all over everything. It's like stringy, like crude oil kind of, right? And then if it's too cold, then you have to like chip it with a freaking screwdriver. It's actually just really hard to use it. So as I said, some people make little tablets, which is convenient, but then you have to take so many of them and it ends up also being expensive. So what I liked about yours and like about it still is in the little, what do you call it? Like a little ampule or sachet.
That's it.
Little sachet, and you just like bend it, squirt it in a drink or just right in your mouth. And I keep them in my airplane bag. I mean, it's like every time I travel, I'm like pounding those things on the airplane. And so that's another innovation I think that you nailed, is actually making it into more of a liquid so that you can like properly dose it and make it portable too.
Yeah, thanks for recognizing that, because we've spent a lot of time and energy in finding a way to deliver it in a way that tastes better and is also easy to use. We're actually in R&D for 5 years with that sachet machine.
Really?
Yeah, to get it right. It's
Oh,
super advanced mechanical engineering. I'll show you a video of how
Oh
it
my
works and it'll
God.
blow your mind.
So
And
for those listening, what we're describing is, and for those watching the video, you can see it, right? But it's like a little packet that's like, I don't know, a little smaller than a credit card. And then you just bend it in half and there's like a little perforated slit here, right? And then you kind of just squeeze it out and make sure you don't waste any. I squeeze mine like 10 times to make sure I get every little drop out of there. But when you look at something like this, you don't think like, oh, I bet that was hard to do. I'm just thinking, oh, cool. Somebody figured out a way to make Shilajit like more practical to use, you know? So 5 years of that.
yeah, so the trick is, so that's actually a top and a bottom layer to that. And the liquid has to get in between that top and bottom layer with the four-side sealing
Right.
and without it leaking.
Oh
Because if
my
it
God.
leaks when that's happening, then it goes all through the rollers in the machine and all over the polymer,
Oh,
the top
right.
and bottom. So yeah, anyway, it's super advanced. It's very boutique. There's nobody else that has those kind of sachets. And yeah, there's times where we've kind of wanted to give up on that. However, we're aware of the challenges that you spoke about with Shilajit, and you know, to have these sachets in your kitchen just saves you so much time and is so easy to use. And then you can travel with them and do all of those different things. So we've stuck with it. We've got it right. And yeah, it's super exciting to be able to deliver the correct dosage in a way that is easy and saves our customers time.
So I take one little mono packet a day. Is that like, is there like a law of diminishing returns kind of thing? Like if I did 3 a day, would it be overkill and be a waste of money? Or is 1 a day like a pretty good maintenance dose for general health?
Yeah, 1 a day is enough. As we said before, like 1,000 milligrams of pure Shilajit resin is a lot. The only reason it's a liquid inside those sachets is because we're adding it to the ocean plasma. So 1,000 milligrams of ocean plasma. And then we've got an Ayurvedic professor of 50 years that has shared like his chai formula with us. And chai actually negates that really strong flavor of the Shilajit. It's the combination of the cardamom, the nutmeg, the ginger, and then we have the cinnamon and the vanilla and the clove to kind of give it that kinder flavor profile, because nutmeg and vanilla is kind of, if there's too much of that, it can be quite soapy. But that's the only reason it's in a liquid form. I'll show you after the podcast, because we just did the manufacturing, the latest run last week, and the blocks of resin that we put into our manufacturing kettle, they're like the blackest, most shiniest thing you've ever seen. They come in 100-gram blocks from the Himalayas, and they're like concrete.
Wow.
So we put them in the mix with the ocean plasma. We do it at low temperature, so it maintains all of those enzymes and triterpenes. But yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. It's a super expensive process to go through. But again, we know that's the actually best form of those substances in the market. And that's something that we feel super passionate about in an industry that, has so many other versions of products that are just there to make a profit, or, they're getting them in powdered forms with other fillers, or they're coming from places where there's basically no life force left in the substances themselves. So, yeah, we feel really good about being able to get the best quality substances into those little sachets and have them in people's kitchen in a way that they can access that nature, the best of nature, in an easy way that can save them time.
And save them from hiking 16,000 feet.
Totally.
Who's collecting the Shilajit, and how do they harvest it?
Yes.
I'm picturing like little, I don't know, little Sherpas like up there, rock climbing, getting to these little crevices and chipping it out with a hatchet or something. How does that process work?
Yeah, it's super intense, and especially at that altitude. So last July and August, we employed around 600 people in the Himalayas to go out and collect Shilajit resin.
Wow.
Yeah. At the place where we were there was around 17,500 feet. And, it's super remote. It's at that altitude, it's some of the scaredest I've ever been, because monsoons come through and no one's coming to get you. And when I was up there last time, I needed to have oxygen because I wasn't acclimatized. And so I actually went up in a helicopter, and we had to do an emergency landing at 17,000 feet, which is about the height where the helicopter can sometimes not start again.
Oh, man.
And we'd had 6 days of monsoons. So, the fear was that we mightn't be able to fly for another 4 or 5 days. And we only kind of had, 24, 48 hours of oxygen. So yeah, it was a pretty scary experience. But yeah, so 600 people will literally gather it in hand with sacks, and then it goes through a filtration process to separate the resin from the dirt and the other things that are in the ground to end up with a pure black resin.
I'd love to see that. I'd like to see the 600 people descend on the mountain and just start like hunting for it. I picture it just to be a really difficult process, just thinking about how it's kind of stuck up in rocks, and it's not just like it's bubbling out like a spring or something and you just go fill it up with a bucket. It's like you've really got to kind of hand mine it, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and there's some deposits that will come out and you might see a chunk like the size of a baseball. Like the biggest one I've ever seen was probably about the size of a gridiron. But most of the time it's just small amounts in with all of the rock and the dirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, Shilajit is super interesting because now they're mining it like at 1,000 feet in countries like Somalia, because it is, you can buy Shilajit anything from like $20 a kilo up to $2,000 a kilo. That's how much the market is kind of changed for it. And, $20 a kilo, a powder in China, buy it per ton, and, it might actually have like 1 or 2% fulvic acid, and you don't know what else is in it. But yeah, the other higher forms, they are much more expensive because it's a lot of work to get to them, and you can only access them for about 8 or 10 weeks of the year.
Is it renewable, or do you see a time when enough humans catch on to how amazing Shilajit is and it's all gone?
Yeah, no, the ranges where it exists are massive. So even though it's coming out of those high altitudes, the Himalayan mountain ranges is massive. It's available in Kashmir and Mongolia as well. The Altai range in Mongolia is massive, and then up through Tibet into China, and then up through Russia and Siberia. So often I'll say to people, like, those mountain ranges alone is like going from LA to New York and back.
Oh, wow.
It's a serious, massive land.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of abundance. Like we wouldn't have even touched 0.001% of Shilajit amongst all the companies that are selling it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder what, you look at people like Graham Hancock, right, that are kind of giving you this alternate view of archaeology and things like that. I wonder what the truth is about however many thousands or millions of years ago was was the top of those mountains the bottom of a sea, and this is ancient seaweed, or you know what I mean? I was like, I wish I could go back in time and just see what was happening. Like, what were all those plants growing on before they became Shilajit over thousands of years of, getting compacted, and however that happens. It's so interesting. Do you have any knowledge, like what the commonly held belief is about like what that mountain range was, and how did those freaking plants get up there? Because you're talking about above timberline, there's not enough oxygen for plants to grow up there. But at some point there was, because that's where the Shilajit came from.
Yeah, not sure. I mean, I know in the middle of Australia there's opalized cockles, which means like it was under the ocean at some point. In the center of Australia, that would be like saying Denver was under the ocean. So it's hard to tell what different cycles the Earth's been through. But at that high altitude, the plants that the Shilajit is made from, and my best guess would be like it's that kind of cactus world. They're exposed to such extreme environmental conditions that they take on and develop a lot of protective compounds to be able to exist in those locations where there's extreme pressure or extreme temperatures, like freezing temperatures. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Shilajit has a lot of those biogenetic stimulant qualities, is because when we're able to extract and ingest those compounds, then our body also receives those protective compounds that the plants have been developing potentially over hundreds and thousands of years.
Hence the name Mana Vitality.
Yeah.
Reminds me of goji berries, we have the Shilajit, I think is more historically relevant to the Ayurvedic system, right?
Yes.
And then goji berries more in Chinese medicine. And I've heard that about goji berries, that their nutrient density is in part because they have to survive such extreme weather conditions. I think that's an interesting way to look at things, So it's like you want to go into nature and eat the most resilient living beings to give yourself the most resilience. I wonder if that's true of oysters. I don't know what their life is like. I want to let people know, if you want to check out Mana, we've got a 20% off code here. So if you go to lukestorey.com/Mana, MANNA, your code there is Luke20. And by the time this conversation goes live, the gold will be available too. It's about to be available at the end of this month, and this will be out in a few weeks. Also, I forgot to mention before, the show notes in general for anything we link here will be found at lukestorey.com/Mana2, the number 2. I recently signed up for this subscription service called Quantum Upgrade, and it's been a major game changer for my energy, EMF resilience, and the overall feeling in our home. Let me explain how it works. Quantum energy is the energy that supports all life in the universe. It's nonlinear, non-local, and has an immense potential for health when it's harnessed and directed to you or into your living environment. Through many years of research and development, Quantum Upgrade created one of the world's most potent sources of usable quantum energy. So when you sign up for their service, Quantum Upgrade associates your home, car, phone, business, and even your pet with this energy. The energy you receive with the Quantum Upgrade is a high consciousness field that you can even customize on the fly. For example, I like to set different booster levels at specific times, such as before a podcast recording or during sleep. It's pretty awesome. The Quantum Upgrade energy streaming service has already been studied and tested by independent institutes, doctors, and labs with phenomenal results in placebo-controlled double-blind studies. It's been shown to improve red and white blood cells and even reverse stages 1 and 2 of blood clotting in only a few minutes. You can try it right now risk-free with a 15-day free trial by visiting quantumupgrade.io. All you got to do is use the code Luke15 to activate your free trial. Again, you'll find it at quantumupgrade.io. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about the sea mineral solution and Ormus. I remember many years ago when I got into all this stuff, Ormus was like a really big kind of trend, and I heard things like, oh, they're minerals that exist outside of the periodic table that have been kind of censored or removed from our knowledge base, and that they're subatomic. And the Ormus just had this kind of allure about it. And there were some products that came out here and there, and it supposedly was Ormus, like little liquid dropper bottles and stuff. And I'd buy them from time to time. And I never really understood what it is. And it's one of those things that I just kind of chalked up to me. And it's just like a marketing word, and it's not a real thing. So eventually I just kind of lost interest in it because I could never figure out what the hell it meant. So from your experience, I guess that's two questions. One is the sea minerals, the sea plasma, and then how that relates to Ormus and what Ormus actually is for your understanding.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And the ocean plasma, I might just start with that first.
Okay,
so
cool.
That's a hypertonic solution that we get from the Dead Sea, 50%, and then we also get it from down off Tasmania and put it through a 3-year solar evaporation process to adjust those mineral ratios. So basically we're just lifting the magnesium, potassium, calcium, sulfur component, and then reducing the sodium chloride and allowing all of those other trace minerals to come into effect.
That takes 3 years.
Yeah.
So if you just went and, drank some water out of the Dead Sea, the sodium content would be too high. So to get like the concentration you'd want of those other minerals would be impossible because you'd be overloading yourself with sodium, basically. Is that why it takes 3 years?
No, sorry. So the water that we get from down off Tasmania, that's traditional seawater, and that's 95% sodium chloride. So that's the one we're adjusting.
Oh, okay.
And the Dead Sea water actually is only about 8% sodium chloride.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's actually organically really high in those other minerals.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I
crazy high in magnesium?
Yes.
Like a float tank? I've heard that you can go to the Dead Sea and just float around like you can in a float tank because of the saturation of minerals in it.
Totally. Yeah. So it's about 55, depending on where you get it from, but it's about 55,000 parts per million.
Holy shit.
Which is about the same amount as a magnesium supplement.
Wow.
But then it's really high in potassium, calcium, sulfur, and chlorides as well. So the beautiful thing with the float tanks over there is you're not just getting like a normal float tank will just be isolated to magnesium or potassium, whereas it's got all of them, which is super powerful.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I was fortunate when I slept on the bank over there for 90 days. That I had access to a laboratory that had just been built in the base of Masada, which is a really famous mountain over there. One of the big mining companies had literally just built it, and a lot of the rooms were vacant. And I befriended the manager and was able to test different deposits of water. And I presumed it would be sodium chloride as well, in a very high ratio, but it wasn't. It was those other minerals that we just discussed. So it's a very different source solution to any other water I've ever found on the planet. But the actual ocean, the Pacific Ocean and the Tasman Ocean, they are 95% sodium chloride. So if you're just drinking that, you're going to overload your kidneys and it won't, it's just too concentrated.
You're going to get disaster pants.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, if you're still having like 30 mils of that a day in a liter of water, it'd be super beneficial for you. And that's basically what ketone ocean plasma is. They've got an isotonic solution and a hypertonic solution, which is 3.5%. Beautiful product. Love it. That's based off Rene Quinton's work last century, who was healing all kinds of people through France and Egypt just with normal ocean water.
Dude, did you hear about the experiment he did where he, I forget how many dogs it was, at least one, where he did basically a blood transfusion and replaced its blood with the isotonic and it continued living?
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, sounds not true. You can look it up. He really did it. And again, I forget the details of how many dogs it was, but he was experimenting, and that's how close those sea minerals are to our own plasma, basically. It's super fascinating.
Super fascinating, especially in that percentage ratio is very similar. So again, the blood's really giving us a lot of that electrical charge. Again, back to that electrical circuit, electrical system. So, Yeah, that's what we're doing with the ocean plasma, but in a very, very concentrated form. So the ocean plasma that we use is between 330,000 parts per million and 350,000 parts per million. And the reason we stop there with the concentration of it is it starts to solidify if you go more than that. So our holding tank actually has crystals growing in the bottom where it is solidifying. And it's almost like a plasma in that form. So when we mix that ocean water that goes through a 3-year solar evaporation process with the Dead Sea water, we do that with a resonant vortex technology that has a rotating magnetic field around that vortex communication chamber, and the substance turns white. So it's producing a precipitate that we call Ormus or Mana.
Okay.
However, it's debatable whether that is a monoatomic or whether it's a diatomic. We kind of pull back from that now because it's like the whole monoatomic world is very subjective. And what I mean by that is, from what we're learning with the nano gold, in nature there's monoatomic gold in all different colors and forms that are still becoming gold, if you will. Like they're particles looking for additional electrons, deciding what they're going to become.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they haven't fully potentiated yet.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Correct. Yeah. And once
You're into such cool shit, dude. I love this stuff. So fascinating. All right, carry on.
It's a lot of fun, but with the Ormus,
Yeah.
there's a precipitate there. It looks like it's elements in other spin rates or elements that our technology doesn't detect yet. So at the moment, we've got 118 elements on the periodic table. Potentially there's many more. We've found additional ones in the last 100 years that were predicted by scientists like Walter Russell, that instead of having a periodic table that's just a 2D chart, he created one that's a spiral, a vortex. And he was able to predict elements that we didn't know about then because he could see the nodal points on that vortex. And since then, we've discovered some of those. And there's still lots more to be discovered from his work.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so these elements could be those. So there's the ocean plasma, there's the precipitate, which we call Ormus. And then, I guess, does that answer your question? Like on what Ormus is? It's not even clear to me, to be honest, Luke. I know that there's orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements is what it stands for. I went and stayed with Barry Carter for 10 days back in 2014 to learn more about it. And he was known as like the librarian of Ormus on the planet. He had basically been gathering like a lifetime of work. And he ended up giving me 1.4 terabytes of information at the time.
Really?
Which was everything he had. And it was only a year later that he left his body. And it was the same with David Hudson. He was the guy that was finding this white substance on his farm. And he found that when his crops were exposed to that, they were growing much faster, much healthier, and the yield was much higher. So he invested millions of dollars of his own money into finding out what that white powder was. But when he was sending it off to get assays initially, they were just coming back and saying it's nothing. Like it doesn't register in our technology. He was saying to them, well, what are you talking about? Like I'm sending you, a pound of this stuff and you're saying it doesn't exist. There's nothing there.
Wow. So
that's where he spent millions of dollars of his own money trying to figure out what it was because it was having such profound effects on his crops. And then, he was, he had a whole bunch of things to happen to him where he pulled away from investigating it any further. So it's kind of always just been this interesting, mystical space.
Well, were some of the things that happened to him like, visits from men in black hopping out of black SUVs, telling them to, how this is like when you start to, say there's a researcher or someone who's just really curious, right? And starts kind of leaving the known paradigm of science or technology or engineering or whatever it is, thinking of people that come up with free energy devices or, cars that run on water, and all of a sudden they start disappearing, mysteriously and things like that. It seems like when we hit a certain threshold of understanding through independent research that it's somewhat common that the powers that be come in and stamp that out because in this case, let's just guess, maybe they really like the idea of just sticking with the periodic table that we have. And if you start getting out of that in a way that could really benefit humanity, the forces out there that are antithetical to humanity don't want you to do that. Do you think it had anything to do with that in this particular case?
Potentially. I mean, one of the stories with David was that he wanted to commercialize it and start producing large volumes. And he had everything ready to go, and the factory burnt down. So again, hard to say, was that natural or was that, something nefarious? I met another gentleman that called himself the Essene in Australia, in Melbourne, and he was also setting up a commercialized facility to produce Ormus. And he had millions of dollars worth in huge water tanks. And then someone came in the middle of the night and cut all of the pipes that released it all out onto the ground, basically.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns as you start to further develop your understanding and production of Ormus products? It's just weird because it's not like, I don't know, it's not like a free energy thing where it's going to compromise an entire substrate of the world economy, right? If you come up for an alternative for gasoline, that's a huge threat to a massive industry. But it seems like, I don't know, who would be pissed off about Ormus that has incredible health benefits, like the medical industry? It's not like it's curing diseases that they want to monetize the treatment and management of. It's just, it's weird,
It is an interesting one. I think gold and Ormus is often referred to as those precious metals coming through in other spin rates, in particular gold. And even with the nano gold, I feel like there is a component that the understanding changes science, similar to a free energy device. It's like when people turn on very advanced free energy devices, it actually sends neutrinos up into the ionosphere, and they can detect that and go to the location really quickly.
Right.
So yeah, it's and there's a component of that that's not necessarily bad either. It is like a national security risk, because some of those devices are, they're some of those advanced units of those are like reproducing a sun, like reproducing a desktop sun or creating a black hole. And some scientists that I know that have built free energy devices that are working off toroidal dynamics and have turned them on, they haven't been able to control them, and it's really freaked them out. Like concrete floors start turning to liquid and waving, and
whoa.
So I feel
and probably jamming, radar and military infrastructure and things like that, right? Hence, kind of setting up a beacon for the powers that be. Like, what the hell? There's a blip on the radar here.
Yeah.
Drive down this country road to some tweaker inventor who's coming up with some device in his garage. You hear about stuff like this, and there are situations like that on record where somebody's tinkering and it kind of raises a red flag because they're working with different energies that, like you said, could potentially just be unsafe. And in other cases, maybe threaten an existing paradigm or, something like that, that they like things the way they are. It's like this whole thing around, like I was kind of clowning on dinosaurs and fossil fuels, but it seems that the powers that be that have amassed wealth and power based on imposing the idea that there's a scarcity around a certain resource, right? Like water, for example. I learned some years ago that there's no shortage of water. Drinking water, there's no shortage of. Salt water, we kind of know that. But I learned about primary water, and basically the planet makes water. And one could argue that all the water on the planet, the 70, 80% or whatever it is of the entire planet, that the water that's here didn't come from outer space, which I don't even think is real anymore either, but that the water is actually being generated by the planet like oil. And so there's all these kind of systems in place that teach us from the moment, we're born, our first day in school, that there's these limited resources of water or energy, things like that we have to buy electricity. And then you start going down these rabbit holes on TikTok and you find out, oh shit, learn about Tartaria and like, why did all these cathedrals have these cathodes and diodes and, these tubes of mercury that were catching energy from the ethers? And there's like so much information that has been suppressed by the greed of very few people that don't want the masses to know that our universe is more abundant and that has more potential for technological advancements and the betterment of the quality of our life experience here. It's just so interesting, how a few people like you slip through the cracks and, you're just making this little supplement over here. You'd probably be able to continue on uninterrupted. But if you kind of get into the lane where you're actually going to disrupt an entire system, especially if there's a lot of money behind it, it's dangerous. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's coming. Like, I was talking with someone last night that knows someone in South America who's able to replicate molecules.
Really?
So that's really cool. Those couple of technologies I mentioned before about being able to cluster monoatomic elements or monoatomic, gold atoms. That's super interesting. Some of these free energy devices that are coming through. So there's a lot of things sitting there right on the precipice. I feel like as our consciousness keeps changing, the external world being a reflection of our inner state, they will just start presenting, and everything has its timing is how I understand it. And, as much as there's a part of all of us that really want those solutions to be here now and end a lot of the challenge and struggling and resistance to life that so many have, I also feel like the journey to get there is really important. And from consciousness's perspective, that is such a blessing to actually have that journey to go to where we're headed. But I do feel that it's going to accelerate super fast now with the assistance of technology and just the new light codes that are coming in. And we're
I
going
love
to get there.
your positivity. It's healthy for me to be around people like you because, I just am such a truth seeker, right? And much of the truth out there is not great news, right? There's like, you can really get swallowed up by the darkness in the world because you want to kind of know, right? If you have a curious sort of character, you're going to find the love and light and all the positivity and the great awakening, but you're also going to find the great reset on the other side, So I'm always trying to find, my balance and lean more into your perspective, which is like, we're on the precipice of something really amazing and there's amazing developments technologically. Consciousness is elevating and in today's world, where we're expected to be on and connected at all hours, poor sleep has become a real pandemic. But it's not supposed to be this way, y'all, and thankfully, it doesn't have to be. Taking control of your brain is the key, and New Calm helps you be the boss of your brain with their clinically proven, neuroscience-backed technology. You can think of New Calm as music with a purpose. Now, what you hear when you listen to it is a symphony of beautiful sound. But at the core of New Calm is neuroacoustic software that gently guides your brain waves to the deepest levels of sleep, meditation, or even focus or max energy. All you do is just throw on some headphones, open the app, and press play, and New Calm does the rest. And what's wild is that with their Power Nap program, you can actually get 2 hours of restorative sleep in just 20 minutes. I do it all the time, and I've been doing it for years. But when I really need a sleep reboot, I'll throw on the Deep Sleep program and start counting sheep with the quickness. Using patented delta wave algorithms, Deep Sleep supports continuous sleep and helps you return to it if your sleep gets interrupted. It's pretty incredible how it guides your brain into the deepest, most restorative sleep possible and makes sure you wake up truly refreshed and rejuvenated, ready to crush the day with vitality and clarity. So you definitely want to check this out. Head over to nucalm.com. That's NUCALM, and sign up for their 7-day free trial. And once you decide to get your subscription, use the code Luke and you're going to save 15% off. I've been using NuCalm to improve my meditation, sleep, focus, and all the things for about 5 years, so I definitely recommend that you check it out for yourself. And here's a quick travel tip for you. Use NuCalm when you're on the plane, and you will arrive incredibly refreshed. It really works. So again, visit NuCalm, NuCalm.com, and punch in that code Luke to save 15% off your subscription. I don't know, maybe I'll ask you this. Do you think that the elevation of our collective consciousness has risen and is rising, and that's why the darkness that has persisted for so many eons here on the planet is starting to come to light? I mean, do you think that's part of why we're all seeing the way things really are that we didn't see before?
Yeah, I feel like there's the system and it's doing its thing and it's trying to control and be even more centralized. It's kind of like having its final hour. And then there's these alternative systems that are being built, that have been getting built the whole time. And there haven't necessarily been the supportive structures for their sustainability, whereas there is now. You know, there's so many people working on these alternative systems, and a lot of them are decentralized, so it's much harder to stop them. Right. And within that decentralization is this transparency and truth that can't be manipulated, that is a representation of that pure consciousness, you know, that's coming through. And that's the only reason something that so transparent and so honest can exist from my perspective, is because of that consciousness changing. So yeah, I see both taking place. And, you know, as the current system just becomes so hard to exist in and like such a squeeze for people, whether it's financial or health or whatever it is, once there's another system for people to jump into and another structure, another net to actually hold them that has a sustainability, I think it's quite logical and even common sense that you would jump over, right? You know, people don't want to jump into nothing,
right,
or the total unknown. It's too scary. They'll keep battling and just surviving where they feel comfortable and safe. As soon as this has a bit more stability and people can feel safe there, I think you'll just get people like leaving by the. That's
a really good point. Yeah, it's like we're going to cling to a broken system before we're going to jump into the void of no system.
Yeah,
right. It's like you know, I think a lot of the issues that we face are rooted in statism, right? We lack autonomy, self-trust. We don't trust one another. So we give our power over to the state in whatever form that shows up in. And until that trust and that consciousness reaches a certain level, we're kind of just going to settle for being statist ultimately, right? And having that kind of mommy and daddy's protection and following their rules and their impositions on our freedom because we need to feel safe, even though we're not really safe. And if you look at the empirical evidence throughout history, the entities and systems we've gone to for safety have actually been the most deleterious and deadly to humanity. And we're, I think, starting to realize that. But I like your perspective of what I'm kind of extracting from that is, rather than trying to tear this antiquated rapacious system down, it's like, oh yeah, you guys just go do your thing over there, and we're just going to keep building these decentralized systems through, you know, our ability to communicate. Now, I think the internet is really the straw that broke the camel's back on the old dark ages paradigm, because even with censorship, it's like we're going to find ways to communicate. And the interesting thing about that, because sometimes I'll think, okay, if really the internet was kind of the Pandora's box that opened for us, then sometimes I'll think, well, they know that's how we're all sharing information and building these new systems. So they're just going to shut down the internet, but they can't, because their entire financial system is also dependent on the internet. And there's no way to really stop it for everyone, right? Some hacker somewhere is going to find a way to get through. And we have these cryptocurrencies, and people are utilizing the internet not only to share information, but also to create new systems of commerce and everything else. So it's like, I don't think they can put it back in the bag at this point. It's just, we've gone too far. There's too much information that's out. And I know all the conspiracy theorists out there too that are really serious about this information. They're saving all this shit on local hard drives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the information that we are learning now about suppressed technologies and hidden history and all these kind of things. It's like, even if the internet shuts down, there's hard drives all over the world full of all this stuff. So it's not going away. You can't take that data from people's individual servers. It's like, we have it, right? So even if they did go, okay, we're shutting down the World Wide Web for everyone except the upper echelon of the pseudo-elite parasite class, we still have the information and we're still going to find a way to print it out and share it. And I don't think there's any going back.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, which is a positive thing, which again, you know, I'm always like, think positive, Luke, have a positive message here on the podcast, because there's a lot of darkness out there, man. And it's over the past few years, we've really seen, I mean, you're from freaking Australia, dude. We're sitting here in America going, wow, this is bad. And then we looked at what happened in Australia and Canada, for example, or New Zealand. And we're going like, oh shit, it can actually get worse. There's like stages between, you know, the United States and China or something, or North Korea. And we think, oh, it'll never happen here. And then you see other Western Commonwealth countries getting pretty damn close to the Chinese communism model. Like it's scary. So it's really important to remember, like, okay, let's acknowledge that's there and not put our head in the sands. But rather than like, you know, bickering amongst ourselves and falling for the divide and conquer trick, or, you know, being paralyzed by fear or resentment or hatred for the system, it's just like, cool, let's create our own. I interviewed a guy recently named George Weissman, who, he didn't invent Brown's gas, but he's kind of a guy that created devices that make Brown's gas that you inhale or drink. And he's got this really great thing I have in my office called the Aqua True. I'm on that thing literally all day. It's the best ever. And he is an engineer, you know, and he came up with these devices that you could put on your car that would, I don't know, quadruple or 10x your gas mileage, and kind of in the free energy space and, you know, fuel consumption hacks. And I asked him, like, are you ever afraid for your life? Like if you're, you know, letting this information get out? And what he shared with me, that maybe if any inventors are listening, he said, the key to securing your own personal safety, if you're someone who's breaking paradigms, is you just don't patent anything. And so, yeah, he said, if you patent it, that's when the men in black show up at your door and try to kill you or steal your plans, or, you know, your whatever, your blueprints and all this kind of stuff. And he said, yeah, I don't patent anything. Everything is open source, and you make less money, but you don't get killed. You know, so that's a really interesting, you know, another kind of paradigm change, right? Is rather than like, ooh, I'm going to invent this thing and just use it for myself to enrich myself, but to actually just make things open source and decentralized. And in so doing, yeah, you won't make money, but you also can keep inventing. And he's still coming up with all kinds of stuff, tinkering around in his workshop, and he's not worried about it at all, because he doesn't try to patent it.
I love that. And I mean, that's true service as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're creating something, you're sharing how to make it, how to do it. It's a beautiful approach.
You can go on his site and download the plans for the machine he sells for $2,500 and just make it yourself. He teaches you how. I think it's, I don't know, $20 or something to get the blueprints. And then, you know, you obviously have to be good at building things. The same thing with his fuel saver things. They're free downloads. And if you have that kind of skill, you can just go do it yourself.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
You know, and he still found, you know, I'm sure he still makes great money selling his machines for people like me that have no interest in or talent for building one. So I think there's a lot on the positive side with where we are right now too.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to recognize, like, the system's there, it's running. There's some beautiful people in it. There's some people that may have, you know, alternative ways of still wanting to control or hang on to things that they're doing. However, we don't want to just strip that down without also having those new structures to go into, because it would be chaotic and it wouldn't be a pretty place. The earth wouldn't be a pretty place to be. So I think it's this beautiful period at the moment where there's enough people aware now and more people becoming aware every day that there's better ways to do things. And because of the decentralized nature, people can do things, and the information is recorded, whether it's saved on hard drives or saved on a blockchain or saved in the field.
Yeah.
You know, those new systems are being built rapidly. There's some brilliant minds, some beautiful people building those. And it's just going to be a transfer of energy from the system that's becoming redundant and people aren't resonating with it anymore across to those new open systems. And I think that's a much kinder way for us to transition forward rather than, trying to pull it down. And often as you try and build things yourself, you realize like it's not that easy. Sometimes you've got to compromise on things as well. So, it's
also, it requires collaboration.
Totally.
And community.
Yeah, totally.
There's very few people that can do a thing of substance entirely on their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And finding the solutions.
Yeah.
Because it's super easy to kind of, start waking up and say, oh, wow, they're doing this with their money, or they've done this because of this. It's like, what's the solution for that? Let's focus and build that solution. And putting our attention there is something really beautiful and beneficial, I believe.
Here in the old USA, a positive trend I'm seeing emerge out of the chaos over the past few years is the trend of people living off grid, homesteading, building intentional communities, homeschooling, producing their own food. I mean, I'm watching people on social media do this stuff and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so domesticated. I'm so like, living in a house in the suburbs, and I'm just like, I'm so dependent on the system. I am not self-sufficient at all. It's embarrassing. And it is what it is. I'm getting there, I'm making small steps, right? But I think that is something that's really interesting and is another example of, the darkness kind of pushing people out into the light, and they're going like, yeah, I'm pulling my kid out of public school because they're getting indoctrinated and brainwashed, and I'm growing my own food because everything else is poison, and building my own structures that are not full of toxins. And like, there's so much of that going on now. It's a really cool trend. And I think as more people do it, the micro nations and micro communities that get built around that lower the barrier to entry for someone like me who, I don't consider myself very skilled. Like, I'm not handy. I don't know how to build shit. I have my talents and my gifts, but they're not really, I don't see how they fit into that. So, as more people do it and they figure it out, then it kind of encourages me like, wow, I'm not very mechanically inclined, for example, but I'm sure there's some part of it that I'd be good at. And so maybe I could create a community or join a community and be able to contribute something. I don't know, maybe if anyone out there homesteading needs a podcaster, I'm okay at that. How are you observing that in Australia? Is that an emerging trend there where people are just kind of learning about sovereignty and living off the land and kind of doing their own thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think back to your point, so many of us are so dependent on the system, almost like addicted to components of the system. And that's where I'm super cautious when I'm observing different people bagging it out. It's like, the only reason it exists in such a thriving way is because we're participating in it so often. And there's so many parts of the system that are pretty convenient.
Oh, I'm totally addicted to Amazon. Honestly, like when I travel, I'll be like, oh, I need some batteries. I'm going to Amazon. I'm like, I'm in Costa Rica. You can't just order something on Amazon, And even like in the pandemic when Amazon was like censoring books and stuff, I was like, I'm going to boycott Amazon. Fuck them. It lasted about a day, and I was like, I need some toilet paper. Just like, oh God, there's a level of commitment to your morals that is required too if you're really going to divorce yourself from the benefits that the broken system has to offer and the multinational corporations. I mean, we really do get addicted to the convenience and the speed with which we can just like get what we want, what we need. It is like a bit of a addiction, and I think there's a detox process that creates some resistance there, because I have these idealistic ways of how the world should be and how I want to operate in it, yet I still participate because I'm so conditioned to do so.
Yeah, and it's a transition. I think we're definitely transitioning, and that's the key thing. And we kind of don't know how long that transition is going to take. The system could start breaking down. There could be more legal cases that affect big things. There could be more light codes from the sun, which accelerate things. I guess we don't know, but if we just keep putting our attention on what we're passionate about and what the change that we want to see, I feel like that's really powerful. And if we're still participating in parts of the system because they're convenient or because we enjoy it, I think that's okay as well.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me permission to be addicted to Amazon, Instacart and stuff. Sometimes I just laugh at myself. I'm like, you're someone that talks shit about the system so much yet still, willingly participates in it. But it is a process.
It's a process for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to learning how to grow some food. I think that's going to be a good step. It's like start out with a few little herbs, right? And then you got your own basil at least. That's like a tiny, tiny little baby step into being self-sufficient.
It really is. And I think the connection to nature, just being in the garden and watching something grow from a seed or a seedling to something that's in your kitchen and then consuming that. Like, I think there's so much fulfillment. There's so much peace and joy in those processes that a lot of us have become disconnected from by spending a lot of time inside or just buying everything from the supermarket and all of those things. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, that connection to nature, whether it's the sun or water or growing your own food, is just a really beautiful way to exist as well.
Alice and I took a weekend trip a few days ago, and we stumbled across this little plant shop couple hours from here, and they have a bunch of San Pedro cactuses for sale. And so we bought a shitload of them. We're going to grow our own plant medicine. That's my first gardening foray here since I moved to Texas. The funny thing is about those plants is they're those cacti. They are legal to grow and possess, but they're illegal to process and ingest.
Okay.
Because then it becomes mescaline. Mm-hmm. It's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
The laws are so funny like that. I go, really? Like, it's like, say you have a cow pasture and psilocybin, mushrooms with psilocybin grow out there. It's not illegal to watch them grow, but the minute you go chop them and put them in a baggie, now you have a class whatever drug. It's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with plant medicines and things in that realm? I think I might have asked you that before. That's not your lane thus far.
No. I appreciate the power of the plant medicine and the transformational impacts it can have and accessing the subconscious. That's what the gold's doing as well. So the gold's actually, because it goes into that amygdala and into the medulla oblongata, it's actually, so that it's tapping into those nerve endings and all of that subconscious to release a lot of the causal conditioning that's there. So it's doing it in a way that is kind of, obviously take a plant medicine and you're in that state and you get shown beautiful teachings or things that you can look at. Well, the subconscious, when it's releasing that conditioning or that programming, is doing a very similar thing. So it's doing it with light from the sun as the medicine, if you will. And as you're doing that over time and building up that quotient of light in the vehicle, then you're working through that layer of purification in a different way, in a way that it resonates much more to me to do it that way. I mean, the plant medicine and everything on the earth is getting its source from the sun. So for me, it's almost like a more direct path.
That's cool.
To the light.
That's cool. Yeah, thinking about those cacti sitting out in the desert sun and how much energy and data they're building from that sunlight. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're more of you're like a cacti walking around the planet doing your sun gazing and grounding and drinking the structured water. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think why I asked you this time, and I asked you before and I forgot the answer, is sometimes I meet people that are really tapped in. I mean, I often meet people like you doing what I do here, and I'll intuit erroneously that they've at least at some point worked with psychedelics because they're so tapped in. They have a certain air about them or a certain consciousness. It's hard for me to imagine that they found another way to get there, and it's a great reminder that there are many ways. And how important it is to follow your intuition and what path speaks to you, you know, which for me for a very long time was just breath work, meditation, Kundalini yoga. I mean, I made a lot of progress, a lot of healing, a lot of understanding, a lot of expanded consciousness in those ways. And I probably would have been fine if I would have just kept doing that forever. And then as nature called and I went down another path, and that's been great too. You know, but I appreciate the fact that there are many windows that lead into the mansion. You know?
Yeah, agreed. It's I mean, one way or another, we've got to do it, is how I see it.
Right.
Like the stuff that's stored in there, that's, it can be this life, it can be genetic codes that are passed through our DNA, it can be past lives for us. But there's all of that causal conditioning that has to be unwound, if you will, so that we actually have that solid platform to then be able to move forward from. But once it's still all there and we're in that stressful state or that fearful state, then we can't actually access those higher processes. It's got to kind of come out. It's got to purify first. And that, you know, can take lifetimes. So I think it's the power of seeing through that with a plant medicine or with the gold or with fasting, you know, and different other things you can do, like a Vipassana or a Vision Quest. I think they also help with accessing retreats. A lot of that. Yeah.
I interviewed a guy the other day about darkness retreats, and I'm like, I'll go smoke DMT, no problem with the darkness retreat, which is terrifying for many people.
Yes.
Darkness retreat, he was describing it, and I'm like, my soul literally is like, Luke, you have to do this. Sign up now. You're doing this. You need this. And then my ego is like, nope. I'm not going to be with myself with that degree of intimacy for that long. Too scary. You know?
How long was it going to be?
Like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, a week. Yeah, there's his name's Pavel, and he works with a woman, I think she's actually an Aussie, who is, I forget her name offhand, but she's based in Thailand. She does her darkness retreats, and she's been a legit breatharian for, I don't know, 20, 30 years.
Wow.
Like, does not eat at all.
Wow.
And you hear about that. It's kind of like Bigfoot, you know, you're like, I don't know. Yeah. But I've heard her interviews. She was on my friend Alex Zek's show, The Way Forward. Again, we'll find her name and put it in the show notes, but beautiful soul. I mean, just incredible wisdom carrier, elder. And yeah, she doesn't eat. She just lives on prana, you know, and I really believe her. Over the years, there's been people that have claimed that, and then you hear, oh yeah, but backstage they're eating salami or whatever. But I think she's the real deal. And so she leads these retreats, and he's done a number of them. And people that I know that have done those darkness retreats have had incredibly transformative experiences. But yeah, that's a real edge for me. I don't know. It's just terrifying to me for some reason. So
yeah, I've got a friend that did a 15-day one and didn't and didn't eat.
Right. Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah. So
that's part. I think at this one in Thailand, they get a little light food here and there. But some of them, from what I understand, yeah, you're actually fasting at the same time.
Yeah.
And people like trip balls. You get the endogenous DMT from being in the darkness and all this melatonin you're producing. I mean, people have just, my friend Aubrey has done a number of them. I think he made a documentary about it as well. And yeah, people say you don't need to do psychedelics. You just go sit in the dark for a few days and you'll trip your ass off. So maybe one of these days, you know, I'll do it, make a podcast about it.
It must be one of the most intense experiences you can have.
Right?
Because being in a dark room, as you say, after a few days would be trippy enough.
Yeah.
But actually not eating as well, there'd be part of you that would be questioning everything.
100%. There's one last thing I wanted to ask you. You mentioned fasting, and another thing that I've been wanting to do for some time is do a water fast, which is weirdly enough some experiment I haven't tried. I've done a number of juice fasts and things like that over the years, but I got the intuitive hit that a water fast with the mana and or the mana gold could be pretty epic.
100%.
Because you technically would still just be drinking water, because you can just, this is water soluble, so you just mix it in water, and that would be like your mana tea, basically. And you could use that in place of just straight water. Have you heard of anyone doing that, or have you tried it? Or
Yeah, I've done it quite a lot.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, and I've got a friend actually lives up in Oregon, and he's breatharian, so he doesn't need to eat.
For real?
Yeah.
Not a Bigfoot style, but the real deal. The real deal.
The real deal, yeah.
Oh man,
he does eat every now and again, but he doesn't need to.
Okay.
So he'll eat communally, or when I was up there, I made a couple of meals of dal as an example, and like he had a couple of mouthfuls. But when I arrived, he hadn't eaten for 30 days.
Wow.
But yeah, he goes through periods where he'll have 2 sachets of mana in the morning with his spring water, and that's all he'll have.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And with the gold, it'll be super fascinating. Yeah, as I said, we only just did our first bulk production of that last week. So I'm super excited to do it. Super excited to do a whole bunch of testing.
I want to try that. We should stay in touch and see if we could pull it off. Even, a 72-hour one or something like that, right? Yeah. Schedules permitting, but that would be a really interesting experiment.
Yeah. And I've got some pure 24 karat gold nanoparticles here that I'll give you before I leave.
Yes.
And that's just fasting with that and spring water, but will be super interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if you were to combine that fast with urine therapy during that. A couple of my friends, we did a podcast the other day with a couple of friends of mine, and I forget which one of them was, but they talked about, call it recycling looping.
Okay.
Call it looping, where you're fasting and doing the urine therapy during your water fast. And then, you're basically, sorry, I think I got it wrong. You're not even drinking water. You're just looping your own pee. Sounds gross, I know. But they were describing how there's this powerful psychoactive experience that happens.
How long are they doing that for?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast. It was like a 3.5, 4 hour podcast. And that was just one of the threads. And I was like, oh, looping. And they were talking about, when you do a water fast and then you're, looping in that you're just reconsuming all of your urine, essentially, that you reach a really interesting state of consciousness. I forget the details, but there was something about that. So
it would start getting pretty concentrated after a while.
Yeah, something like that. I'll have to ask them. I forget which one of the guys it was. It was Alex Zek, Josh Trent, and Aaron Abke. And it was one of the three. It was like, oh yeah, looping, blah, blah, blah. Then you start tripping out after the third day or something. And it was like, that's interesting. I don't know if I'm there yet, but it's, I hear things like that. And then sometimes there's a voice that's like, you got to try that. And then there's the resistance of like, that sounds gross or scary, and then I don't do it. But I never forget it. It always kind of like, there's a bookmark in my subconscious that's like, there's something to that is begging for further, inquiry.
How long do you think you'd do it for?
I don't know.
Whatever the protocol is.
First, I'm going to try it with your monogold and water. And then I'll see about the urine part. Yeah. Well, goddamn, dude. I want to remind people, go to lukestorey.com/mana. Use the code Luke20. Get yourself some of this Mana Gold or the regular Mana. I fully vouch for what you're doing. I love the work you're doing. I love your commitment to integrity, product quality, sourcing, the whole shit, your design element, your graphics, like everything is just super clean and top notch. And you're also just an incredible guy and a beautiful podcast guest. So thank you for making the time and that long flight. I know you didn't fly here just for this, but I appreciate the sacrifice you made to be here, man. Anything else you want us to know before we go? Like, do you have anything else in the pipeline after you get gold out and that's up and running? Or is that project like leaving you with, the sense of accomplishment that's going to last a while?
Yeah, that's it. So there's the 3 main raw materials that we deal with. It's the ocean plasma with the Ormus in it. It's the Shilajit, and now the nano gold. And that's the full suite that we're going to focus on.
Cool.
There is so the Mana has ocean plasma and Shilajit in it with the chai flavoring to help with the Shilajit taste. We've separated that into 2 products. So there is one just called Shilajit now.
Oh, okay.
Which has 500 milligrams of pure Shilajit. So it's half the dosage that's in the Mana. And then there's an ocean product now as well.
Oh, cool.
Which just has 1,000 milligrams of the concentrated ocean plasma at that 330,000 parts per million.
Oh, I'm sorry. That reminds me of one more question. So we were talking about the ketone minerals, right? The hypertonic, which is the super salty one, and then the isotonic, which can be used for blood transfusions for dogs, if you ever needed to do that. How does your sea mineral products stack up in terms of potency? If someone was like, well, I'm already taking Quinton, not to shit on Quinton. I have some in the fridge. I actually took a swig this morning, and I took 2 doses of Mana today. So more is more for me. But how does your ocean stuff stack up against Quinton for people that are already using Quinton or like hip to that?
Yeah, I love Quinton as well, just to put that out there. They're a great brand. They've been around a long time. They've been very successful. Great product, and brings in great awareness around ocean plasma because it is so powerful. The biggest difference is that ours is 10 times more concentrated. Or another way of saying that is it's 1,000% more concentrated. The other huge difference is that theirs is so high in sodium chloride, whereas ours is lower in sodium chloride and really high in those other minerals that our body's starving for, in particular magnesium, potassium, sulfur, which is they're the 3 most abundant minerals in the body outside of sodium.
Cool.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to give a respectful answer, which is usually the case. It's rare that someone's like, oh, that product sucks, ours is better. But I was legitimately curious about that because I do take both. And I'm like, is that overkill? Am I wasting money on that? So yeah, it makes sense. If yours are more concentrated, you could probably, if budget's an issue, you could probably just take Mana and not have to spend your money on the Quinton in addition. All right, cool.
And the symbiosis between the ocean plasma and the Shilajit's really beautiful as well. It's like where one's kind of low in our lab results, the other one kind of picks it up. And we kind of look at that as the black and white keys on a piano.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's like the ocean plasma is the white keys, because once we put it through our process, it actually turns white. And then the Shilajit's like the black keys, and it's like the two complement each other beautifully. And it's like, we are singing a song as a human expression. So if you want to sing your best song, you want to have access to all the keys on the piano, right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Ebony and ivory living together in perfect harmony.
That's
Stevie Wonder. All right, dude. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.